I am busy making fig preserve. I'm putting them into this thermos flask, boiling some water. All the figs I'm checking as I cut them, they're all perfectly worm-free, delightful looking. Here's the other half. I've already put half into the thermos flask. We're boiling some water. We're going to let these figs soak in the boiling water for, it could be even a day. Keep on replacing the water or heating the water back up. The figs are quite a hard fruit. I'm going to make fig preserve and fig jam. Let's see what it turns out to be. I prefer fig jam to fig preserve, but they're very similar. So we're just keeping on putting the figs into our thermos flask, and then we will add water. Just look how lovely these figs all look. I'm quite surprised because my tree looks so eaten by, the stems were so eaten by wood borer that I thought of chopping most of the tree down. But I thought, no, let's get the figs from this year, and then maybe next year we can think of pruning most of it away. But if it's going to produce as lovely figs as this, then wood bored or not, this tree is going to be a wonderful asset. We have baboons in the area, so I heard them this morning just as I was about to go back to sleep, walking past. So I thought, no, I'm going to run out and get all the reasonable sized figs before they get them and make some preserve, because not only do they take the figs so that you can't get them, obviously, but they break the branches too, because, you know, they've got to try and get to the figs, and the only way they can do it is by climbing the tree, and some of the branches are, I prop them up with sticks, but they do break the branches. So I thought, no, let me get to the figs first. And the lovely thing about figs is, as they start to as the tree starts to get its leaves, as spring arrives, it also gets the fruit. So you get fruit very early from a fig tree in the season, and then they produce a secondary amount of figs later on. So I thought, well, at least let's try and get something, because in past years, actually, my figs have been very wormy. As it gets later into the season, they just get very wormy for some reason. But there wasn't a single sight of a worm inside, and you can tell it goes like a browny color. Maybe the worms come later on, I don't know. But I looked it up. It's perfectly fine to make preserve from green figs. I have done it in the past. So now we're just going to let these soak. You can use bicarb or lime to soften overnight the figs. But my belief is I just want to use boiling water and sugar in my recipe. I just want to boil the figs till they're soft. So now we're going to leave this for a couple of hours. Then we're going to reheat the water, because obviously these figs were cold. So we'll reheat the water, put the same water back in, keep on doing that for about 12 hours, I think. The figs have stood in the hot flask for 3 hours. Now I'm cutting them up and going to boil them till they're soft, and the water in the pot, which I took from the flask, has boiled away. I used the same water because I'm sure the nutrients from the figs leach out. All the figs look beautiful inside, not wormy at all. Don't like extra protein with our vegetable matter. Figs are a little bit softer. I don't think it's going to be too incredibly hard to boil until they're soft. So we just cutting them up is a sort of a first preliminary stage to making jam. Figs are one of the harder fruits, especially unripe figs. Ripe figs would be very soft. So now this is going to be able to boil for a couple of hours. I think that foam is just naturally there from figs. Because the figs are so hard and I don't have a blender, I'm using a liquidizer to crush the figs and then to throw them back in here. I've added some apple cores and apple skins to help with the pectin. One's got to try and get this fig as soft and homogeneous as possible to get it as much like a jam as possible. So it doesn't take too much to break it up. Now I've added about a third of the amount of sugar as fruit. It's going to start looking translucent and more like a jam soon. Figs are quite a hard fruit, so we're going to keep on stirring this till most of the water will boil away, and we hope it's a bit too runny still. You can see there's too much liquid, but we're going to boil it and keep stirring it so that it doesn't catch on the bottom. I've boiled this now with sugar for probably half an hour. You can see how thick, I hope you can see how thick the syrup is getting. It still hasn't shown any sign of catching on the bottom. Oh, this is looking so yummy. But look how, you can see there's virtually not much liquid left and it's getting very concentrated. And it's halfway between a fig jam and a fig preserve. I boiled it in the sugar for longer because the sugar has got a slightly higher temperature and it's going to help soften the figs more. But I still think I can boil this for about another 5-10 minutes without it burning, even though the syrup is very concentrated. This is going to be like a cross between a fig preserve and a fig jam. So most of the liquid is now evaporated away. We've reduced it. But there is still some liquid at the bottom, so I think we're going to just boil it for about another 5-10 minutes, stirring it most of the time to make sure it doesn't burn. So our fig jam / preserve boiled only for a minute or two longer than that last video. And now I'm going to try it out on some flatbread. Yum, yum. So here is our flatbread with our fig jam / preserve. I knew it would take long to cook, but one made it from these green figs, which I think is what you're supposed to make preserve from, and ripe figs you make the jam from. So it's, I think, using a mortar and pestle to grind it a bit smaller helped. Delicious fig taste. And a lovely texture. Soft. It's just sugar and figs. I think this is definitely a winning formula. I added a little bit of apple peels to the figs to add to the pectin. I would say this is completely successful, delicious. I love making flatbread in the air fryer, and this jam / preserve goes perfectly with flatbread. Yum.